The US Open is nearly upon us, just one day to go, and we've had the pre-tournament press conferences, and we knew there were going to be questions coming up of a certain nature, and Novak Djokovic and Carlos Alcaraz have been posed the questions about Jannik Sinner's doping allegations. Let's go through it. But before we get stuck into it, make sure you've hit a like and subscribe to the channel. And we're going to start off with none other than the reigning champion of the US Open. It is Novak Djokovic. And he was asked the question about Jannik Sinner's doping allegations. And he said, I can understand the sentiments of a lot of players who are questioning whether they are treated the same. As far as Jannik's case, you know, as I said, these kind of instances are the very reason why we founded the PTPA. That is always advocating for fair protocols, clear protocols for standardized approaches to these kind of cases. I understand the frustration of the players is there because of the lack of consistency. As I understood, his case was cleared the moment basically it was announced. But you know, I think 5 or 6 months passed until the news was brought to him and his team. So yeah, there is a lot of issues in the system. We see lack of standardized and clear protocols. I can understand the sentiments of a lot of players that are questioning whether they are treated the same, which there's a few other players out on the tour who are voicing for the players who haven't been treated the same. Obviously, Nick Kyrgios, Denis Shapovalov, two of the main people out there. He went on to say, hopefully the governing bodies of our sport will be able to learn from this case and have a better approach for the future. I think collectively there has to be a change, and I think that's obvious. Probably no better player than Novak Djokovic to speak out on behalf of the players, obviously with this Players' Council. Many players, without naming any of them, I'm sure you know already who these players are, have had a similar or same, pretty much the same cases where they haven't had the same outcome. And now the question is whether it is a case of the funds, whether a player can afford to pay a significant amount of money for a law firm that would then more efficiently represent his or her case. I think that's a really good point. Definitely in the case of Jannik Sinner being world number one, he's going to have oodles of cash, surplus to be able to pay the best lawyers in town to go and fight his cause instantly, whereas some of the lower ranked players will not. Djokovic goes on to say, I don't know if that's the case or not. That's something really I feel we have to collectively investigate more, to look into the system and understand how these cases don't happen, meaning not the case itself, but how we can standardize everything so that every player, regardless of his ranking or status or profile, is able to get the same kind of treatment, which is brilliant. I mean, Djokovic, somebody who does give back to a lot of lower ranked players and always looking out for his fellow tennis professionals. So I think, yeah, it would be great if everybody got the same treatment. Said, so yeah, I would say that's probably the overall, I guess, my opinion and observation of this entire case and what we've been reading and observing and talking about the last few days. So Novak Djokovic pretty much on the side of we need transparency, we need clarity, we need fairness across the board in tennis so that we don't have these occasions where people are saying, why is there one rule for one person, one rule for another person? Why does it matter on how much money some players have compared to others for having a fair treatment in the system? So glad that he gave his thoughts on it. Very concise, very much like Novak Djokovic, a wise man who's been on the tour for many, many years. And yeah, dealt with that question very, very eloquently. Next up, Carlos Alcaraz. Obviously, we know. I thought it was a really good showing from Alcaraz as well. Obviously, we know he's still learning English and he's worried about putting his foot in it as well, I'm sure, because when you don't know quite the right words to say in English, it's easy to say the wrong thing. And I thought he handled himself well, because it's a tricky question to have to tackle. This is what he said. He said, well, it's really difficult moment for him, and that's at this moment. That's for sure. It is complicated. I mean, I'm not going to lie. It is complicated. But obviously what I can say, I mean, in English, it's going to be difficult for me to explain myself, but I'll try. Well, I believe in a clean sport, so I don't know too much about that. You know, I'm pretty sure that there are a lot of things that we don't know, you know, inside the team or inside, you know, everything. But if they let Jannik to keep playing, is for something. They said he's innocent, so that's all I know, and that's all I can talk about. I think that he's been very PC there. He can't really give any other opinion. I mean, I feel like both players have handled this in the right way. You can't obviously go after Jannik Sinner. Obviously, they're good friends as well. This is probably a tough moment for him, seeing somebody that he does get on very well with on the tour, having to suffer something which he probably didn't ever think was going to happen, and probably sees this as a learning experience for himself as well. If you see someone of your status and professionalism going through something like this, it probably makes you tighten up your own team as well. So I'm sure Carlos Alcaraz and his team will be definitely going through everything with a fine-tooth comb just to make sure they don't suffer any of these atrocities, because your reputation, once it's damaged, it's hard to come back from it, and the fans don't tend to forget either. We're just going to end on this one, which I thought, I just saw it came out. I've had to translate it. It's actually from the physio of Jannik Sinner as well. He put out a Instagram. I translated it into English, so apologies if it doesn't translate quite rightly. But this is what he said. It is true that there are two tracks of the justice, the true one sanctioned by the courts, and that, unfortunately more effective, sanctioned by the media. The latter too often and rarely based on concrete facts, which in this case, however, are public. As a spectator, I'm always asked what was the goal of specularizing the judicial affairs, if not to judge, create or destroy people and their reputation. Today, that I am the protagonist, I have the confirmation. So, and then he goes on to say about obviously working with Jannik Sinner and his team, sharing all of those amazing moments and saying goodbye to them, essentially. A sad moment for him, but yeah, I mean, there's a lot to be learned on his side as well. It's a bit of a worrying time for sport if you can't get a massage without having the worry of facing doping allegations. I mean, you really need to be super careful. The tests are getting better, and you really have to be careful who you have in your team and what you're doing if you are one of these professionals, part of a team as well. Jannik Sinner was asked about this incident pretty religiously throughout the press conference, despite the first question, which I thought was very interesting in this press conference. They forwarded it to a member of the US Open media team, and then after he asked the one question about this incident and his thoughts, which was a very, very sort of, it was a light question with a light answer, almost like it was rehearsed between him and Sinner. Then they said, we're not taking any more questions about this incident, and that really caused a problem in the media room. You heard everybody saying, what? Like it's that everybody's questions were about it, and they continued to fire the questions at Jannik Sinner. And fair play to Jannik Sinner, he didn't just say, I'm not answering anymore. He actually answered every single question. So fair play to Jannik Sinner. He didn't just walk out. He sat there like a man, answered the questions. He believes in his innocence. He believes he didn't do anything wrong, and that's why he is sitting there and answering everything as truthfully as possible. But that's just the drama that unfolded in the pre-tournament press conferences. Imagine the drama we're going to have at the actual US Open. But let us know your thoughts about those comments in the comments section below. And if you haven't already, smash a like, subscribe, and join us for US Open action. It's coming up every single day, and you don't want to miss a part of it. We'll see you for it.